Good morning, everybody. This is Tia Torres yet again with the Tia Talk podcast. So, as many of you know, I also like to work with the prison element of the other part of my life. And it's something that I've always been very passionate about, something that I've always been very involved with, whether it be a love interest who I was helping with their case or just one of hundreds and hundreds of letters that I get from prisons around the country. Uh, Truth be told, to handle the requests that I get from the prison world, I would literally have to stop running Via Loveless Rescue Center because it is a full-time job to do both. So I do feel somewhat guilty that I can't clone myself, for lack of a better word, especially when it comes to the current situation that I find myself in trying to help a young man out of a prison in Michigan. His name is Jamal, and it's an interesting way how I met him. There is a reality show on TV called Prison Brides, and it followed several women from other countries who were all engaged to or married to an American inmate. And it just talked about the issues they were going through, how difficult it is, how they met them, etc. And this one particular storyline stood out because out of all the couples, the story of Jamal and Gabriella were the only ones that were talking about how he was wrongly convicted. And in watching their story unfold on TV, something drew me in because Gabriella's passion for Jamal and his case reminded me of me back in the day. You know, my first case in trying to help an inmate was actually Tony, my ex-husband number 3, who is my co-host on my 25 to White podcast. When I met him, he had been charged with murder. I know, right? Why did I even contact this guy? I don't know. Something just told me to do it. And once I got to talk to him and he saw that I had a good head on my shoulders for the law. I always dreamed of someday, being a closet attorney. I love the law. He asked me to look at his case because he said that he should not be charged with murder. And he was sitting in a county jail for years fighting this case because they were seeking the death penalty. So when I went through the discovery, which is what they call the court documents, police records, all that, I saw what he was talking about. And I'm like, wow, maybe he didn't do this. Now, to be fair, he was somewhat involved in the crime, but not directly to the murder of the man that died. It was a strange situation. Actually, nobody was supposed to die. And some friends of Tony's burglarized a condo, on drugs for drug money. I can't remember, something seems to tell me that I think they knew the guy or the guy sold drugs himself. I can't remember all the details. But they tied the guy up, just went in there to rob his condo and left. And what ended up happening is one of the guys dropped something. I can't remember his ID, something important. And Tony offered to go to the condo and pick it up, thinking that the guy was still going to be tied up. And when he arrived, the man was dead. He had tipped over in the chair trying to get out, hit his head on a table or a counter, threw up, and because they had put a gag over his mouth, he choked on his own vomit. So Tony's DNA was found at the scene because he went there, and I think it was a cigarette butt. So again, he had knowledge after the fact, and he got swept up in the case. Anyways, I helped him get a better attorney. I helped the attorney get a private investigator, and by the time they got it all straightened out, his charges were dropped down to, I think it was like manslaughter, which again is still bad, but sure beats the death penalty and a murder charge. And then, of course, fast forward to AJ, my ex-husband before, who I got very involved in his case. So when I reached out to Gabriella and said, I feel what you're going through, the response I got was pretty interesting, because she was like, oh my God, Jamal has been telling me to get a hold of you because everybody in prison knows who you are. And I thought, wow, okay. And she sent over all the court documents, everything. And I'm giving you the Cliff Notes version. He was charged as a juvenile for the killing of his best friend. As a kid, a teenager, I think 16, he has denied it from day one. No matter how much pressure was put on him, which, come on, let's face it, most kids cave. But he kept saying, I did not kill my best friend. I did not kill my best friend. His DNA was not found at the scene. There was actually other DNA found at the scene. But he was convicted based on hearsay. Can you imagine that? Let me explain to you what hearsay is. That is like saying, let's say somebody you know gets killed, shot in their house and killed. And I come along and say, oh, well, so-and-so, meaning one of you, told me they did it. And that's what you are arrested and convicted. That is exactly what happened to this kid. And he didn't have a jury trial. He had a bench trial, meaning just the judge. And this kid just got railroaded, you know? I mean, you got to understand, this was 12 years ago in Detroit, Michigan. You know, young black boys and young black men stood no chance back then at all. He didn't have a family support system. He was just a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid trying to fight this case on his own with a public defender who kept trying to get him to take a deal. And he kept saying, I'm not pleading out to this. I'm not saying I did this just to get a deal. I didn't do this. And he has maintained that for 12 years. So much that he's actually written a book called A Pain-More Person. I'm actually probably going to talk about his book on this podcast. So I jumped in and I said, let me see what I can do. First being that we have to find an attorney in Michigan, that would take his case pro bono or raise the money to hire one. Because so much has come up since then, he might stand a chance at a retrial. He was given 40 years. So he will get out someday. But it's just, your knee-jerk reaction is to say, yeah, everybody says they're innocent. But if I may, turn on Netflix, watch a miniseries called The Innocence Files. It's based on the Innocence Project. And they show different cases where men were exonerated years, decades later. And these particular cases were pretty earth-shattering. Where I literally jumped out of my seat and went, no. When you realize that they didn't do it. And in these particular cases, the evidence was much more overwhelming than with Jamal. Unfortunately, the Innocence Project has about a 5-year backlog. So, it's tough. So, as much as I would like to pour my heart and soul into working with these inmates, time restraints. So if any of y'all listening know an attorney in Michigan that would help out, hit me up. A young man's life depends on it. So you'll be hearing more about Gabrielle and Jamal's story. They become a part of my little family. Jamal actually calls me his godmother. I hope I can fill those shoes. And, I think I'm drawn to these type of people because in so many ways, they remind me of the dogs that we rescue. Don't get me wrong. Many of them are guilty as charged, but so many are not. And, they can relate to the dogs that we rescue. They say we're the underdogs. And many of them are sincere in wanting to start life over again. So I just feel compelled to help them. And it's interesting. I just gave myself goosebumps. My new ending tagline for every episode, although from my TV show, I think it still relates to these inmates that I'm working with. Because my mission is to rescue. But my hope is that one day I won't have to.